All right, so let's dive into something I think we all experience, right? Talking about the weather. I mean, you chat with your neighbors about it, you use it as an icebreaker with strangers, and, even when you're traveling, you try to connect with locals by talking about the weather.
It really is a universal language. And, it's especially helpful for people learning English. It's like a really good chance to practice in like everyday situations.
Yeah. But here's the thing that I've always kind of wondered about. Why do we spend so much time talking about something that we can't control?
Yeah.
Like, complaining about the heat isn't going to magically make it cooler, right?
Well, I mean, it's practical, right? The weather dictates so much of our daily lives. What we wear, what we do, even how we feel. I mean, it only makes sense that it's like, I don't know, always relevant to everyone.
Yeah, it is. It is. Like, it's this shared experience that just connects us all. And plus, it's a pretty safe topic, you
Yeah.
know? Like, we're not going to offend anyone by talking about the weather. Perfect for avoiding those awkward silences, right?
Right, exactly. It's like a social lubricant and, helps us kind of navigate those initial interactions, find common ground. And let's not forget about the emotional aspect too. Like a sunny day can just spark joy in people, right? Or a snowstorm can like bring excitement, something we all react to in some way.
And you know what? I've found it's particularly useful when you're traveling. Like, it's a great way to start up conversations with locals,
Hmm.
get their perspective on the area, and maybe even get some insider tips. Like, I remember when I was in Italy, I asked this local if it was always so windy by the coast.
Oh, what did they say?
They told me about this amazing little hidden cove that was, like, sheltered from the wind, perfect for swimming. I never would have found it if I hadn't just struck up that conversation about the weather.
See, there's value in it.
Yeah.
Even the most casual, like weather chat.
Hmm.
And speaking of value, how about we equip our listeners with some essential weather vocabulary?
Let's do it. I'm ready to go beyond it's hot or it's cold.
All right, don't worry. We'll keep it practical. We're going to focus on terms that you'll actually use in everyday conversation. We'll start with the basics. So, we got sunny for those bright, clear days.
Okay, then there's cloudy for when Dunn decides to hide behind those big fluffy white things in the sky.
Right. And then rainy, of course, when those clouds decide to, release all that water.
Yeah. Windy for when you feel like you're battling nature just to walk down the street.
And snowy for those, magical days when everything is transformed into a winter wonderland.
Oh, and hot for when you can practically fry an egg on the sidewalk.
Right. And cold for when you're bundled up in, like 10 layers looking like a marshmallow.
Oh, and we can't forget humid for when the air feels, I don't know, thick and heavy, like you're swimming through soup or something.
You got it. Those are your everyday essentials. Now, how about we put them into practice a little bit?
Ooh, a quiz. Game on. I love a good challenge. Hit me with those scenarios.
Okay. Picture this. You wake up, blue skies, the sun is streaming through your window. You can already feel the warmth on your skin. What kind of day is it?
That's an easy one. Sunny day. I'm already reaching for my sunglasses and sunscreen just thinking about it.
Perfect. You nailed it. All right, now imagine this. You step outside, the air is crisp, there's a slight breeze, you can see your breath. It's not freezing, but you definitely need a jacket.
Hmm.
What would you call this kind of weather?
Hmm. That sounds like a chilly day to me. Am I right? I'm actually feeling chilly just thinking about it.
Chilly is a great word to use. Definitely more descriptive than just saying cold.
Hmm.
Now, for our final scenario. Okay. You're all cozy inside, but outside it's a completely different story. You hear the wind howling, rain is just pounding against the windows, you even see flashes of lightning. What kind of weather is happening out there?
That sounds intense. I'd say it's a stormy day for sure. Rainy, windy, and maybe even a little bit of thunder in there.
Excellent. You've mastered the basics. Now let's take it up a notch. How can we go beyond, just stating the weather and actually spark a conversation? Because let's be honest, just saying it's sunny can get pretty boring.
I'm all ears. I want to be able to chat about the weather like a pro,
Yeah.
not just exchange these basic observations.
The key is ask engaging questions. Instead of saying, "What's the weather like?" try something like, "Is it supposed to rain today?" It shows that you're, interested in more than just what's happening right now.
Right, yeah. It's practical.
Yeah.
It could actually influence someone's plans for the day.
Exactly. And if you're talking to someone online, right, maybe they live in a different place, you could ask, "How's the weather where you are?" Just a nice way to acknowledge their location and show you're interested.
Yeah, it's a lot more personal. I like that.
Okay, so imagine it's Friday afternoon. You're daydreaming about weekend plans. You can ask a colleague, "Do you think it will snow this weekend?" It's playful and, kind of seasonal and opens up the conversation.
Oh, that's a good one. It's like you're inviting them to share in your anticipation for the weekend. More than just a weather question. It's like a social connection. I'm already feeling much more confident about my weather talk skills.
That's great to hear. And you know what? There's even more we could talk about when it comes to weather conversations. But before we get ahead of ourselves,
You're going to leave us hanging. Don't worry, listeners. We'll be right back to uncover more of the secrets of engaging weather talk. Don't touch that dial.
welcome back. Ready to continue exploring the world of weather talk?
Yeah, I'm excited to keep going. As we were talking about all those engaging questions before the break, it really made me realize just how much, like, weather forecasts influence our daily decisions.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if I hear a chance of rain, I'm grabbing an umbrella, even if the sun is shining right at that moment.
Oh, same here. Same here. But it's funny how sometimes those forecasts can be so off. Like, remember that time I planned that whole picnic based on a clear skies prediction, and then we ended up, like, running for cover when this sudden downpour hit?
Happens to the best of us, right? It's a good reminder that forecasts are just predictions, not guarantees.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which I guess kind of adds to the whole mystery and intrigue of weather, right?
Right.
You never quite know what to expect.
Keeps us on our toes. Gives us something to talk about.
Speaking of talking about weather, we've covered vocabulary forecasts, but I'm really curious about the kind of the social and cultural side of things, right? I mean, we've talked about how weather is this universal topic, but I imagine, like, different cultures probably have their own unique ways of talking about it, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. You're right. In some cultures, weather talk is like deeply intertwined with, traditional beliefs and practices.
Like, are there cultures that have, like, specific rituals or sayings related to, like, certain weather phenomena?
Definitely. For example, in some agricultural societies, they might have traditional proverbs that, predict weather patterns based on the behavior of animals or maybe the appearance of plants.
Hmm, that's fascinating. Like, weather becomes a way of connecting with nature and understanding its rhythms.
Exactly. And in other cultures, weather talk might be more about like expressing emotions or building social bonds. So, for instance, in some cultures, complaining about the heat might not be seen as negative, but rather as a way to kind of bond with others over this shared experience.
Yeah, that makes me think of how we sometimes use, like, weather metaphors to describe our moods, right? Like
Ah.
feeling under the weather or brightening someone's day.
Exactly. It shows how weather language can be like, really creative and symbolic in different ways.
Yeah. I've also noticed that in some cultures, people tend to give very, like, detailed and specific weather descriptions. Like including precise temperatures, wind speeds, humidity levels.
That's true. And then other cultures, it's more about, I don't know, conveying a general impression or feeling. Like in some cultures, just saying, it's hot might be enough, but in others, they might go on and on about like the specific type of heat, whether it's dry or humid or stifling.
It makes you wonder, like, how those cultural differences might play out in conversations between people from different backgrounds,
Hmm.
right? Can you imagine, like, a conversation between someone who prefers these really concise descriptions and someone who, like, loves to go on and on about, like, barometric pressure readings and stuff?
Oh, there's definitely potential for some like funny misunderstandings, but also I think for some really interesting cultural exchange.
Yeah. It really highlights how even something as simple as weather can,
Yeah.
open a window into these different ways of thinking and communicating.
It's like weather talk is a subtle form of cultural immersion.
So next time I'm traveling or, even just chatting with someone from a different background, I'll be sure to, like, really listen to how they describe the weather.
Yeah.
Who knows what I might discover.
It's a great way to deepen your understanding of the world and connect with people, on a more meaningful level. You might even pick up some new vocabulary along the way.
Always a bonus. This has been a really eye-opening conversation so far, but you know what? I think it's time for a quick break to let all this information sink in. Don't worry, listeners. We'll be back in a flash to wrap things up and leave you with a final, thought-provoking question. All right, and we're back for the final part of our deep dive into weather talk.
Ready to wrap things up?
I gotta say, throughout this conversation, I've realized that weather talk it's so much more than just like small talk.
Yeah, it really is.
It's like a window into different cultures and a way of expressing ourselves,
Yeah.
even like a reflection of, like, our relationship with nature.
We often take it for granted, but it really does play a pretty significant role in our lives, doesn't it?
It does. And as we wrap up, I want to circle back to a question that we kind of touched on earlier. How does the way people talk about weather, like, differ across cultures? It's something I've been thinking about ever since you mentioned it.
Yeah, that's a question that deserves like more than just a passing thought. I would love to hear if any of our listeners have encountered, like unique weather expressions or proverbs, maybe in their travels or just interactions with people from other
Me
cultures.
too. Those little sayings can tell you so much about a culture's values, their beliefs, even their sense of humor. Like, I
Mhm.
remember hearing this saying once from a Scandinavian friend. He said, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing.
That's a great example. It really speaks to their, I don't know, resilience and adaptability in the face of often some pretty harsh weather.
Exactly. It's like a reminder that even something as seemingly objective as weather can be, perceived so differently depending on where you come from.
It really does highlight the beauty of diversity, right?
Yeah.
Even in something as universal as weather, there are all these unique expressions and perspectives.
So to our listeners, we really encourage you to kind of reflect on this question and maybe share your insights with us. Like, what unique weather expressions have you come across? How do they reflect, the culture they come from?
Yeah, we'd love to hear your observations and stories.
Because ultimately, by understanding how other people talk about the weather, we can really gain a deeper appreciation for their worldview and build stronger connections, right?
Absolutely. That's the power of weather talk. It's this universal language that can bring us all closer, even with our differences.
So well said. That wraps up our deep dive into the world of weather talk. We hope you enjoyed it.
And remember, the next time you find yourself talking about the weather, think about, the cultural nuances, the hidden meanings, maybe even just the potential for connection. It just might surprise you.
And as always, keep those conversations flowing.